Got it. Got it.
Good evening. Welcome. Glad to have you all here tonight. Tonight, it is our pleasure to host Dr. Gail Ferreira. She's an agile transformation expert, a coach. She's led multiple agile transformations and has worked for some of the big consulting firms like Boston Consulting Group, Deloitte, and Oracle. You might have heard of them. Dr. Gail has written two books on enterprise agile transformation, along with lots of white papers and articles and things of that nature. She's presented at international conferences for IEEE, the Agile Alliance, and Project Management Institute. She's president of the National Speakers Association of Northern California, or the Northern California chapter, I should say, and an area director for Toastmaster. She also leads the Silicon Valley Agile Project Meetup, which I've had the pleasure of interacting with those fine folks over there. Really enjoyed it. So, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Gail. Gail, glad to
Yes.
have you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Yes. And interesting story. I'm going to be going off of all Miro boards tonight. Interestingly enough, my other computer crashed. I have to be truly agile, and it's a good thing I have this all up on Miro. But just to give a little bit of a journey about this presentation, it's interesting. The idea came about at the end of 2019, and then I put a proposal in for the Agile Conference 2020, which got canceled because of COVID. And so I wasn't able to present this. And so what I ended up doing was turning this into a workshop for UC Santa Cruz Extension, which was a 2-day workshop. And then I also used a lot of the ideas here for a nonprofit firm that I was working for COVID-19 called Helpful Engineering, that I'll show the Miro boards and everything that they ended up coming up with. But in the workshops that you see, Santa Cruz Extension actually startups have used this and really elaborated in the 2-day workshop about how deep you could go into this. So, for a single hour, we're only going to scratch the top layer of the onion, but there really are a lot of possibilities for this. And then the last leg of the journey was, interestingly enough, that I went again, and in 2021, when the Agile Conference came back, then I presented again for them. So it's kind of had a life of its own. I guess that's what happens with all these things. But I don't know where it's going to go next, but we're all here tonight, and we'll get as far as we get. Again, an hour is kind of a very short time. But once again, thank you all for joining, and I'm looking forward to this. So really starting out with the high level reason of why you would even, use principles or values, when you're thinking about, coming up with your transformation roadmap, or even just coming up with a company or guiding a company, is you do have to have, a single North Star in order to guide organizations. And I think all of you are familiar with Simon Sinek's work, where he says, starting with why, where, people aren't interested that much into the how or what when they're buying a product. And he uses Apple computers as the example, where if you just talk about you're a software company and you can hear music and you can do all these types of things, then, it's not really too exciting for people. But when you think about, what people remember Apple for, in terms of their products and their simplicity and a lot of their core values, then it's a lot more enticing, right? And all the effort that Apple has always put into a lot of their marketing and making sure that people really understand their why and are very enticed by that, has always, really gotten people involved and really want to buy the product. So it's really great for marching to customer value, but then it's also good in terms of, getting individuals in your teams to collaborate with you and build that morale in terms of, really what you're going to do as an organization. So that's really just the higher level reasons for the North Star, and using this approach, right, to guide organizations. And there's a lot of different ways that you can do this. I've done this where I show people principles. And so in this particular session, we'll go through and look at the Agile and the Scrum principles on my Miro boards, because for a lot of the entry level classes, they kind of want to see this anyway. But you could even use idea cards or picture cards, or go into an idea incubator with people where it's more free form in terms of, how they come up with their values and principles. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do it, but really getting, executives to understand what, the core values and principles will be to guide their companies first before they get into the tactics, and the what and the how is super important. So let me go ahead and share my screen here, and we'll show some examples. Let's see, get past my LinkedIn profile. So looking at Apple and their values, so I think it's important to go through the different values and see some of the things that they look at. And you see that they really, have a lot of personas here and things that will resonate from people, the healthy respect for well-being, and then showing some specific personas. I think this is pretty cool. Putting the personal and personalization, and I think everybody always remembers Apple products for that. Really being environmental friendly, keeping it green and clean, and then growing roles into careers. So this is really important in terms of just really, showing that they're focused on the human element. Off to a running start, where you see the Apple Store specialist and see, how you get these people are off and going, and inspiring minds by augmenting reality. And I think this is a really cool value statement here, because you see a lot of different people. You see all the personas here, and it's very lifelike. You have a lot of diverse individuals that are showing in their values. So it's really very lively and lifelike, and you can see how it would captivate a lot of people, right? Just with the visuals as well as the content there, which is something that Apple's really well known for. So I really like what they did with their value statement here, but here you're really getting into the why rather than the what and the how, right? And then there's a lot more here as well. You can certainly go into the Apple site and look at this, but you really see all their core values, and you see realistic people, that you can relate to. And again, people from a lot of different cultures, a lot of different ethnicities and things like that. So you can definitely see a very distinctive culture and a definitely distinctive set of values here. And then getting into Amazon, actually, they've got all of their leadership principles, and these are really important to know. Actually, if you interview with Amazon, they have you interview and around their principles, and they have you choose a few of them that are really resonant to you, in terms of what they all mean. A lot of them are very distinctive. And they used to have 14, now they have 16, because they're getting into other areas, with the environment, which a lot of these key high-level companies are. You saw with Apple, they had a lot of environmental values, and then Amazon now as well, right? Strive to be the Earth's best employer, and also about success and scale, bringing broad responsibility. So these are like their two new areas that they're focusing on, and a lot of times in the interviews, they want people to focus on these more rather than the older ones, and talk about what's important about that to you. But you can see that it's, more than just a book selling company, or more than just a large platform, right? To, for a warehouse. They really do have a lot of very distinctive values that, distinguish Amazon as a company. And they're doing more than just, developing AWS as well, right? So they have a lot of really core values that really stand out and make them, very distinctive. And once again, in their interviews, they do, first round interviews, they do interview people around this. So I always show this a lot to my students, and a lot of times we dig a lot deeper into this, because if they're going on for interviews, they, they'll be well versed. And then the last example, we'll just give three, but Salesforce, of course, has theirs. And then, of course, a lot of theirs is, finding out the different things about empathy, which, you saw a lot of that even with the Apple and some with the Amazon as well. Right, being able to structure information to frame your problems, challenge your existing assumptions to open up new possibilities, make your ideas tangible to share and inspire, continuously learn, and then also pitch and commit. But you notice with all of these, with the Apple and the Salesforce, they actually show the people and the personas, which makes it a lot more lifelike. So anyway, these are just a few examples. There's a lot more, and depending on the sector that I might be doing this presentation for. For example, if I do finance, since right now I'm over at Bank of America, I might show companies with their financial companies and their principles just to give ideas. But it's a good start, and usually we have more of a tech crowd around here in Silicon Valley, so we like to see a lot of these. But at any rate, it's a good way to really distinguish your company. And again, you really get to focus a lot more into the why and see the real people behind the scenes so that you capture and grow these things. So what I've done is I have let's see, go to my board. See, I think my link is already in the chat, but I don't know, Chris, do you have the link still? Could you share it or do I have to go back and?
Absolutely, I can share it.
Okay, thank you. So the way that I actually show this is to go through and go through all the various frameworks and principles here. So what this is, and when I used to do this in person, I did it on a wall. So you actually had all of the principles up on a wall. But for example, if you go through and look at all these various principles, and a lot of these are ones that companies use as well, especially like a lot of companies have trust and some of these other basic Scrum values, right? It's part of their core value system. But what you see here is, the Scrum, right? The Scrum principles, empirical process control, collaboration, time boxing, self-organization, value-based prioritization, iterative development. So you've got these, and then I go into detail about what each one of those means when I'm doing more of the workshop, especially for people that are newer to Agile. I know this group has seen this a million times. But then there's the 10 Agile principles, right, which are all about working software. They do have simplicity, which is something that, even companies like Apple and other software companies would consider a core principle as well. Things about the iterative reflection, face-to-face conversations, things like that. And then, of course, we've got the modern Agile, right, which is things a little bit different. Definitely the newer one is making safety a prerequisite, which is so important these days, right? The psychological safety and environments to make sure that people really are feeling comfortable and feeling safe when they're working with teams. I think that's really an important addition to the Agile playbook, along with, the funner things of building the culture of making people awesome. And then along with some of the other ones that we already know about, like delivering continuous value, right? A bit more tactical and quantitative, and experimenting and learning rapidly. And then, you've got the XP principles, which are older, but some of these are really important in terms of, how they look at things, how they look at flow, how they look at failure, mutual benefits, things like that. So those are things that could be important to organizations and teams. You've got the Spotify principles, which, really when you looked at the Apple core principles there and you saw that, a lot of it was definitely very human, right? The images that you saw, and definitely very relevant, unified, but that might be the type of thing if you were a company like Spotify or even like Apple to really, have more of the personas or the humans in play. And then, of course, you've got all the Disciplined Agile principles. There they have Be Awesome as well. So that's seen in a few different places. Also Flow, because they think about lean a lot. Having choices, right? So really having different ways of working is important to Disciplined Agile, along with, customer value or delighting customers, having pragmatism, enterprise awareness, and context. So that's a few things there. And then we've got the Scaled Agile, all the values there, which we know the newest one is organizing around value. So I think that's probably the most popular one. And then we've got Less. So these are all the values here. Large scale Scrum is Scrum. And you've got the transparency. You've got the whole product focus, lean thinking, continuous improvement, customer centric. So you've got a few areas there. And then this one's Silicon Valley Product Group. I recently took training there. So a lot of product discovery, right? And building these inspired products. So really focusing things around the product teams. principles of product vision and strategy, and principles of product and scale. So again, I'm feeding principles here, but again, for those types of classes or workshops where it's people learning Agile or wanting to use Agile, then you would do this. And so then basically what you end up doing, and if I go down the board, I know it's down here. Hang on a second, I might have to scroll and find it. Oh, here we go. I knew it was close. So what you end up doing, and for the first iteration, and eventually we'll go into, actually we'll just have a single breakout room here since we've got a smaller group, but you end up starting out with, you have the group go through the boards or go through the wall if things are up on the wall, and then they choose what the most resonant principles are. And usually I say about 5, certainly teams can go with more than that. But the first thing they do in the first iteration is they go through this, they talk about all the different methodologies and frameworks and the principles, and then they choose the 5 that would be the most resonant to them, for a group. And they can come up with a startup that they're doing or some other project, right? Or you could just say, you're hypothetically starting some organization. So you say, in this organization, what would be, the key principles that you would start with? So that would be your first iteration. And then for the second iteration, now you go into these principles that you've chosen and you say, which one is the most important to you? Which one do you really want to focus on that would be your North Star? So in this case, it would be organizing around value. So say you chose organizing around value to really be your most important North Star that you would track to. And then now for your next iteration, you would go in, and then you can certainly go in and create like what your epics would be, right, to do this. And then you can keep unpeeling the onion and do epics and stories and a lot more areas. And then you can certainly create the metrics as well. So what I wanted to show you is actually a case where this happened. So again, I mentioned that I was over at a nonprofit. So what we did, if you look over here, whoops, sorry, that's the top end. So they came up with, and I can't share this link, unfortunately. I can only show this because it's still their nonprofit board, although they're not using it anymore, but I still have access. So these were the 5 that they chose. So they chose organizing around values, the North Star. So that's why I had that example in there. Then they had be awesome as another value. They had simplicity, they had delighting customers, and then trust. So then what they said around organizing values, now this is what they were going to do first. So these were the epics. And then they broke it down into like a whole map here of what they did and how trust really revolved around everything that they were doing, how they were going to build their community for the nonprofit, because the community is super important for the nonprofit, right? And then really get into the tactics of how the values tied into all the principles, and then how they were going to actually get into doing the work, and then setting up their mission statement up here, right? Which they're a social impact community on that's focused on creating PPP equipment, medical supplies, masks, all these types of things. So again, I was a volunteer there. I was their director of innovation. So we used this to actually come up with, how they were going to go about setting up their organization and their projects. So they created really a cool board. So I always like to share this as an example of what it could look like. When I've done my workshops as well, and you really dig into this over a few days, startups can use this and really iterate on this, right? And really go down deep into figuring out, what all the different areas that they would do, and then using the Miro boards to do that. So it's an example of how you could really use this and really iterate a bit more. And I know it's like hard to see some of this part, but then we did get into some of the metrics, and we started doing that. Some of the metrics in the OKRs and things like that, and then just what some of their tasks might be, around innovation and all these kinds of things. So it's a pretty cool example, in terms of how they organize their work, but they really started out with those core principles, and they were able to take off from there. So this is a great example of how it worked. And then also we did get into North Star metrics as well. So this was a board that we created. Sorry for the metrics, where, and I'm trying to, get a grip on the screen here again. Oh, here we go. where, oh, here we go. This is where we really got into defining, right, how we were going to go into having the North Star metric align with the product vision, how it's going to measure the customer value, because that was their North Star, right, and how it was a leading indicator of revenue. So we took it one step farther, and then we broke it down right into what all the metrics would do, and then got into the various metrics and the OKRs. And again, you could go on and on with this and go for days, but I'm just showing you some examples, of some really cool stuff you could do with this and some of the workshops that I've led. So it's pretty neat stuff. Obviously, we're not going to be able to get all this done in the hour, but there are some great things, and the metrics and the OKRs are also things that you can do here. And then this is just the elements of the North Star framework that we came up with. So showing the heart of the North Star framework is a North Star metric, right, which would be the single critical rate counter ratio that represents the product strategy. So that metric would be your leading indicator. So then in this case, it's how you track the value. So now you choose that metric for what your highest level of value would be. And that's what we ended up doing there. And, again, the leading indicator of business results. Then the inputs are as important as the metric. So they're all the different things that are going to affect, right, the universe of the North Star metric and what you can believe you can do. And then step 4 was the work. So all of the areas and the inputs that are connected to the tasks that we did there with the research, the design, the software development, any of the refactoring, prototyping, testing, and all of that. So that's what we called the work. And then that's how we got in there, and we were guided by the North Star. So it was pretty cool where we went with this. So, once again, we did that. And then we had our, the inputs versus the outputs there. So again, I wanted to go back to this. So let's see. Let me get back over what I want to get to. This bar always gets in the way. Okay, so I think we're ready to start as the group. I think everyone has the link. So I think we're going to be one group. Is that right, Chris? We're going to be just one single group?
Yep, I think one single group, so we can probably stay right here in the main room.
Right.
And if you'd like, I do have a Google Jamboard available, which is kind of like a very scaled down version of Miro that people could put Post-it notes on. If you'd like, I could make that available.
Yeah, so out of this group, and what I can do is facilitate this. So with this group, since we have a single group, usually how I would start the workshop is that people pick an industry and the type of company that they would want to create like core principles for. So in some cases, individuals did one like the next Facebook, and they say, I say, you're building the next Facebook site, and, you want to make sure that your organization is going to build social value, because that's one of the core values for Facebook. And now you go to this board and then you see what resonates with you for the 5 principles. Or you could create, you could select an industry or select some kind of a company or a startup that you would want to create principles for, or you could use an example for work. So let's start with what type of company or industry you guys would want to represent as you're doing this exercise. So does anybody want to lead off and say, give ideas for the type of company and see if everybody buys in? Does anybody have a specific industry they'd want to focus on? I think most of you are techies or in software or hardware or something, right?
How about electric vehicles?
That's fine with me, as long as everybody else buys in.
I'm in.
Okay. Is there a specific company you want to be like, or, that people like already know sort of what their mantra is already, or?
I might offer Rivian.
Okay. All right. So then basically now what you're all going to do is you all have the link, right? So can you go into this board and take a look at and talk about what principles resonate with you the most? So let's start with the 5 principles. So what are the 5 principles that resonate with you the most out of all of these?
Safety.
All right. Anyone else? We've got to have other.
The customer delight.
What else? What else is important to electric vehicle company? Anybody else? People that haven't talked. VN. What do you think? Did we lose Gopal?
Maybe, yep, looks like we did.
Oh, bummer.
Maybe strong product teams.
Okay. I like human, but
Yeah.
I think with cars that's important too, to be comfortable in the car. I mean, I was going to cars that feel good. They have to have the feel good factor.
Um,
Are there any other ones here?
I'm trying to think of one for cost and affordability. With electric cars, that's usually a barrier.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can certainly put in a principle that doesn't necessarily come from here. These can spawn ideas. Again, like a lot of times I use idea cards and not necessarily around this. Like I said, when I teach for UC, they want to learn what all these are. I know all of you are mostly in this class are veterans of all this stuff. So if you come up with something else, that's fine too. But this is at least a leading point to start thinking about what you might do.
I think another one would be trust, because with trust you can just bring safety, and that trust kind of is umbrella covers a lot of other things as well.
Yeah, that's important. That's important.
I was going to say just plain pragmatic.
Mm.
Yeah, and why do you say that? What's good about pragmatic?
There's so much vision, but how much value is there to the big vision if it's not pragmatic? And I don't know how to explain that, but
Okay. All right, which other ones?
I think maybe by pragmatism, like always pushing to find like maybe the best practices for electric vehicles. Because when I'm seeing in I'm looking at the definition, it says like assessing the truth of meaning and theory. So I guess like being a leader in that sort of thing. I'm trying to understand what he meant by it as well.
Yeah, and I like choice is good. I think for cars, I like having options or choices, right? You get to put in different accessories and do things, right? So I
Yep.
think the disciplined agile one of choice is good kind of resonates with me even for a car.
So one thing that's not on the board, but is what I had in mind from the beginning, is good for the environment.
Mm.
Yeah, and you could certainly add that. Yeah, because I mean that's a core principle for a lot of other companies, and it wasn't here, but it's definitely important. So again, it doesn't have to be on this board. So we could certainly add that. I know, and these agile values need to start getting updated to start considering the environment, given all the issues that we have. So
You could take the applying systems thinking. That's going to be important for cars as well.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
That's a good one.
And all the AI and data and all that, all those are going into cars so that they're getting smarter and smarter. So definitely having that systems in there, it's really important for that. All right, what else? Anything else? So if you were to write a mission statement for this company, what do you think it would be for this EV company? Any takers? What do you think of the mission of the EV company should be? Focus more on the environment, focus more on the product, focus on
maybe something about making electric vehicles accessible to, more people or everyone or something like that.
Oh, that's a good point. Like almost like open source.
Yeah, one of the things I heard somebody else say is like affordability.
Yeah, it was affordability because we've all seen how much Teslas cost. And then not just the cost of purchase, like also the cost of repair.
Yeah.
Right. And then
Maybe we could also, like, one of the things we could do with our electric vehicles is like being able to empower our customers to be able to do their own repairs as well, sharing, like kind of like teaching them as well, like an educational aspect of it,
Interesting.
bringing like awareness more to the customers as well.
yeah, that's a great point. Okay, anything else?
Another one could be helping. I'm going back to the environment. Doing something for the environment without making it a disruptive experience for existing car drivers. So, in other words, maintain the experience of driving a car as people know it, but in an electric way.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, anyone else? So Chris, do you have this all up on a Jamboard?
Ah, I don't. I didn't catch that you wanted to use it. Sorry.
Oh, okay, because otherwise I'm not sure how they would know which things that they just talked about to pick the one that mattered the most. So that's no one.
So well, go back again and just call them out, and I'll put them. Actually, here, let me do this. Let's crowdsource this thing. I will drop the link to the Jamboard in the chat.
Yeah, why don't you do that and then just have everybody like choose the principles and then put them on the Jamboard, and then because otherwise we can't figure out which one we would want to pick for the top principle, right? So it does have to go up on the Jamboard, and then I could you could share that if you want, so that we don't necessarily have to see this. We could see the Jamboard and start working off the Jamboard. Right. Does everybody have access to this link? Okay.
Jamboard.
Yeah, so the Jamboard link is in the chat. Right above that is the Miro board that has those principles. And so the Jamboard, on the left-hand side, right below the select tool is the sticky note tool. Just click that and you can start making sticky notes. Okay, and I'll share it. So I see some things starting to come in. So let's jam, folks. So we talked about it. We should have tracked it then, but that's okay. We can do it again. It can be more than 5. So let's just start throwing your ideas down. So remember what you just said, whatever it was you just said. I remember some of them, but I know there was a lot about the environment. So again, they can be from the Agile and Scrum principles, but they don't have to be. They can be other ones as well. So just start thinking about what would resonate with this. What were some of the other ones people had called out as possible values?
When running these top 5 principles, is it also a common practice to like kind of pick something that could like blanket cover a lot of smaller principles under it?
I'm not sure what you mean by that. With each one of the
So,
principles you can choose, it
so
can
like,
break down into further epics and things like that. But I don't
yeah,
know what you mean. Like,
I guess I meant like breaking it down to further epics, like more granular.
yeah. So then that would be like the next iteration. So then that's what you would do for the next iteration. So for example, for simplicity, you could say like, what are the 5 things you would do to start with for simplicity, right? And then those would be like your epics, and then you can keep, you know, getting more and more granular, right? And either come up with sub epics or start coming up with stories and how you're doing that. And so, for example, if you say organize around value, like what I showed you, then there were 5 epics on saying how they were going to do that. And then from those epics, then they had like a lot more stories and tasks and all that stuff. So it just continues to iterate from there. So you can go as far as you want, and you can get spikes, right, that go off of that and everything like that. But you really just start thinking about that. Okay, so we've got 6 things here. 7. Okay, there's more coming in. Strong product teams, and I think somebody did say something about value. I think I did hear something about value, so I think maybe the value somewhere along the line struck for somebody. Okay, is there any more? Organize around value. Okay, so we did have that one. Oh, that's coming from Chris. Anything else? Are we done? More flat? How do you do the signal there? Like the lean coffee?
Yeah. There we go. Someone just added education/awareness.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that. All right. Is that it? Anybody have anything else? Going once, going twice? Okay, so you have a few more than 5. That's okay. You don't have to have 5. It's just really your top principles. So we have protect the environment. We have safety and trust. We have affordable. That's definitely important these days. Systems thinking. We have choice. We have organizing around value. We have simplicity. We have strong product teams. We have education and awareness. So out of all these principles, which one do you think is the most important? And we could do a poll, or else you could just drop in chat.
For me, it's affordable if it's going to be electric vehicles.
Okay. Other thoughts?
Safety. Just being out on the road these days.
That's true. Yeah, you don't want your cars blowing up. I know a lot of the Teslas do.
Jeez.
Well, it's true. They do the self-driving and then they're crashing, and then the electric components are blowing up and things like that. So you don't want that going on. Okay, so we've got 1 vote for safety and trust and another vote for affordable.
I'll also vote for affordable.
2
I'd
for
say
affordable.
Affordable.
Affordable. 3 for affordable.
Yeah, I'd say safety is probably for me.
Okay, so 3 affordable and 2 safety.
Yeah.
Have there ever been instances where you can like gather around maybe just more than one, like maybe 2?
Generally you would want to have a single North Star, a single area that you would focus on the most, but I mean, you could certainly, you know, somehow combine them or do sort of 2 areas, but I would say to just pick one. So I think there was more votes for affordable than safety and trust, but there was like 3 versus 2 unless somebody else comes up.
I guess we could figure, I guess like under affordable, you would then also consider how do we make it safe and trustworthy too?
Yeah, I mean, it could be secondary, so it's all part of it. So I would just say for purposes of this exercise to go ahead and and then pick the affordable as your North Star. So you could put a star on it. Is there a star element here? Do you have a shape that you could put on there to put a star for the affordable, Chris? There's circles. Oh, you can just draw it. Okay. All right, however you want it. Oh, that's pretty good. Okay, so we'll say affordable is the North Star just for purposes of the exercise. So now around affordable now, so because we do have a little bit more time here, I think we've got like another 10 minutes. What would be the, let's say, 5 items that you would do, or the 5 epics that you would start with to make the vehicle affordable? What do you think you would focus on? What would you want to build out as a product team? How are you going to do that?
Choice of materials.
Okay, that's a good one. So we could add that post-it, right?
And determination of manufacturing.
Okay. Yeah, and
where,
you could just,
where are we going to make it?
okay. And you can reorganize and put it like underneath, or put.
Probably like standardization would help to make it affordable.
Yeah,
Right.
that's a good one.
Worked for Henry Ford.
I think the labor, who you choose for the labor pool, might help make it more affordable too. Like, it depends, but then it might not have, the safety and trust. You might lose quality, but you want to.
So
Keep your
for an
labor.
electric vehicle, the battery is the most expensive component. So there should be something about that.
Or is the resources? Resource sourcing.
Or maybe recycling, finding ways to recycle.
I think maybe also something, I don't know, like how will like hiring technicians in like repairs centers.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I think that probably, I think that actually would fit under labor, actually, never mind.
Okay, what else? Anything else?
Marketing.
And then in terms of a metric, is there a specific metric that you would want to track to make it, affordable, to make sure you're on point for that? What do you think the metric would be that you might track? Maybe the percentage of the market you could capture or something like that, with the price points. I know Tesla did that a lot for when they broke down their various models, like the Model S and then getting into the cheaper models, right? They actually captured different markets in terms of setting the price points.
Like price point marketing.
Yeah, like a price point marketing, but you would want to try
It's
to
different market segments, yeah.
Yeah, get into the market segment. So like when you say affordable, like affordable to who? Because
Exactly, yeah.
it's like kind of a broad term. So I think maybe an epic we would want to do is identify the market segments.
Yeah.
And what's affordable to the market segments.
Yep.
Yeah, because affordable to one group is not going to be affordable to another. It's kind of a relative term.
So there are different categories of cars, like luxury, sports car, compact, whatever. And I would say the metric should be that the electric vehicle should be no more expensive than the average price of a non-electric vehicle.
Okay, well, we could definitely mark that down. So we want to know. So if then for a metric is, then we would want to find out what the average price for a, oh, I like how you did that. Except we lost the star. The star needs to be yellow. The star, the star. So yeah, take an average somehow, or a running mean of the price point of an average car, and maybe bestseller cars, right? To get into that, because we obviously want to, I would think we'd want to capture a lot of sales by keeping it affordable. Is that?
Yeah, then you have the markets by regions of the world and the different economic groupings within the different countries and regions.
Right, right. So yeah, we could definitely break it down by countries and regions, so we could add that up there. And that could influence where we make it as well. So, oh, we lost the background. You decided you didn't like it. The universe is changing. All right, what else? Now, out of those things that you just named, what do you think the most important thing to focus on first would be? Looks like I think we've already identified it, but I just want to validate that. What would you want to work on first?
Well, I like the thing up there about prices below the equivalent combustion engine car.
Yeah, which gets into the price point market segment. So I think what you want to do first is set up your price point, your market segment, and then track in. You could move that epic up there, right? Making sure the price is below the average of the combustion engine cars, and then that would probably go ahead and dictate how you did all these other things, right? In terms of where you would make it, what the labor would be, the choice of materials, all that kind of stuff, right? To keep.
Yep.
To attack the different price points. So those all those things would kind of tie in. So that's kind of cool. Okay. Anything else to make it affordable? Anything we could do with the customers, or
streamlined design? I don't know if design has anything to do in there. I don't know if that's the right word.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Like in terms of just really having a very clean design, you mean, that's like simple?
Using simple materials, like durable, but cost-effective materials, as well as a cost-effective battery and all that.
Yeah, yeah. So you do have choice of materials, but maybe you could put in simplicity of materials, or
I guess we can put in simplicity, yeah.
Yeah, which is a value, but or a principle, but it could be
a
sub epic as well. I mean, you can certainly intertwine these things. So
sell the cars in Costco so you don't have to have retail locations.
Oh my goodness, that's
yeah. Well, the sales and marketing too. I was going to bring that up because you could think about how you do your sales and marketing to keep the keep the cost down. So you could certainly get into that, right?
Or maybe it's like all online. People just order it online and it's delivered.
Oh, that could be scary though, when you end up getting a car at the door that's maybe it's a lot smaller than what you thought, kind of like when you buy clothes online, right? It doesn't fit. You can't sit in the car or something like that. It just shows up at your door and it's like 3 feet tall or something.
Maybe that's part of a good marketing plan though, because then all of a sudden you can return it like a bad pair of shoes or something.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yep.
The Zappos of cars.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Anything else?
Would determining an MVP fall under that, like a minimum viable product?
It certainly could. Yeah. 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 I would say put that there. Somebody doing the card?
I
Okay. And just a question to you, an observation that I have is that a lot of these epics could maybe be used for some of the other principles as well. Has anybody else noticed that? Like, for example, choice of materials could also tie in with protecting the environment for safety and trust, right? Along with other things. So do you notice how, like, when you start with that one North Star, that a lot of these things are tying into the other principles? So it definitely
it's pretty cool.
go across more than one. Yeah. Yeah. And then MVP can definitely go across strong product teams. Definitely the simplicity and things like that. So yeah, so there's a lot of cool things there. Okay, anything else? Nope. You guys feeling saturated? So I think
start building the car.
Yeah, start
I'm ready
building.
to go.
Yeah, you're ready to go. That's right. That's right. So anyway, you get the idea of how you can do this. So you can continue to iterate, right? So you can definitely, dive deeper into the price point market segments, right? Which could be a whole analysis. And where you would get into your different products that you might build to attack different market segments to make it affordable, which a lot of the leading car companies have done. I know Tesla did it with their various models, and they got into the more mainstream market with their more recent models of Tesla that are, I think they're 30 or 40,000, although they may have gone up by now, but they're definitely not the 100,000 Model S. So they broke in to a larger market, right, by finding the market segments that they tied into a lot more. So again, you can dig into any one of these epics and iterate a lot more, to get into the nitty gritty of how you're going to do all these things. And then of course, MVP is pretty broad, and you could use that across any of these other principles as well, but you can definitely get into a lot of things there. Batteries, you can get into a whole engineering analysis and do things like that. Choice of materials, again, depending on when you're building or who you're marketing towards, or whether it's environmentally friendly, you can get the engineers and certainly do lots of analysis and work there. So any one of these, you can again continue to unpeel the onion and iterate, and then set the OKRs and things like that. But the whole point of this is it just starts to give you a framework, right, and how you can work collaboratively as a team to start coming up with these ideas. Again, you can go as elaborate as you want, and set up more sessions with people, in a group, either in a department, or even just to, define a startup, or if you're doing nonprofit work. But I have found that it is a pretty cool way to get people to ideate. So again, I just showed you the method where you show the Agile and the Scrum principles first. It's one way to do it. I did it another way, again, at Deloitte. They had an idea incubator lab where I did it with a lot of CIOs, and we used idea cards and some other ways that we got them, people in groups to generate ideas and just come up with their own free form principles and values, and then figure out how they were going to do that, and then come back with how we're going to track to that. In this case, it was, the case was one of the organizations. It was really to build, an organization that was very fast and agile and go a lot flatter. So we, ended up helping them do a reorg into a Spotify-like model, which is, just really doing things flatter. So, again, there's lots of different ways you can do these collaboration groups and these labs, and then, dive deeper and get into the OKRs and the metrics for each one of these. But I do really like, doing this and doing the collaboration just to see, and you can see that you can get really creative and come up with some cool new ideas. So I think that's it for the session. I think we're pretty saturated enough, and especially with the smaller group, I think we're done a couple minutes early, not too early. I think we're like 4 minutes early, but Chris, if you want to just wrap up with whatever you have, I think I just want to thank everybody, for your time. I did give you my LinkedIn profile if you want to connect with me. I think I know most of you already here. but certainly if you want to talk some more about this or anything else, you know, feel free to reach out and I'll be happy to connect. I've been pretty much working virtual lately, so I'm always happy to connect with people. I'm starting to get out and do things a little bit more, but you know, again, I've been kind of holed up lately, so I would welcome any conversation that anybody would like to start up with me anytime. So thank you, Chris,